Hello and welcome to the Game Week 12 Blank Gameweek special Net That Haul episode. I'm of course FPL Nemo and I'm joined by my co-host FPL Lens. Mariner's taking a well-earned rest considering it's probably like 3 a.m. sometime in Singapore on Monday morning. And he will be back on Thursday for the Game Week 13 show. But without further ado, I thought I'd start with your Game Week, which when I had a little look on Friday, you'd already earned like 23 points just from 2 players when I checked. So you must be having a great weekend.
I just Friday alone, I had a 70+% rank rise from like 160k to 40k. Basically, thanks to Raya. I mean, never expected it. Never expected a clean sheet in this one. So I'd love to take the credit, but I can't take the credit. So I'll just take the fucking points and shut my mouth.
Just run with the points. I guess in the chat as well, guys, let us know about our volume, because I know last time Dred let us know that we were like one of us was much louder than the other. Do let us know if that's the case so we can fix it earlier for the podcast listeners, please.
Yeah, just like keep in mind, like everything is that we're not used to going so early after a game weekends, but because of the quick turnaround, obviously here we are, and so everything is like very much freshly baked. I think for the show. So if there's anything off, we're depending on the haulers in the chat to let us know. But it's kind of fun to like watch the games and then come right in and do a show.
While it's fresh, especially when it was such a big weekend, especially just the last fixture, obviously Liverpool beating City, Salah getting that goal, playing a bit more centrally as well. It looked like it's very exciting ahead of this blank, because obviously the big debate now is kind of how many players do you need to field? How many hits is it worth taking? Should you use a free hit if you were wildcarding in 13? Should you bring it forward if there's disaster in your team? I think there's lots of questions that are relevant for this week. And then obviously on the thumbnail, I've gone for the kind of the Liverpool team and also Trossard. So that's kind of the captaincy debate. I see many who were going to captain Maddison. That's obviously no longer an option. So we will try to look at whether it is worth captaining Trossard. I'm just putting my gain up because I'm a bit quieter than you. I don't know if you want to do the gain down like we did last time.
All right. Oh.
But yeah, so just a quick few shout outs as well to a few people in the chat, and then we'll get to the haulers. So thanks for tuning in, Podno, one of our members on YouTube. Good to see you. We've got FPL Sparta tuning in live. We've got Adam, Doni FPL, another hauler, Inaki Senzano, Chris Irvine asking if I ate your kids. Obviously, we were 10 minutes late. I was eating and you were feeding your kids. So I can see how he ended up getting to that conclusion.
Hashtag logic.
Yeah. C Hunt, what's up? Yep. I think I got a 38-point game week. So considering Gabe had 23 points on Friday night, my 50% red arrow definitely stings. But, you know, I've yet to use my wild card, so I'm hoping that will fix itself. Combe as well. Good to see you, mate. Shiraz, Demirijan. I think, hopefully I said that right. I'm going to start your question for later when we get to the Q&A at the end of the show. Good to see Gay. So Dread as well. He's saying that you're just still a little bit louder, so I might keep putting my gain up a little bit more. And also just Salah the Samurai. How is it, lads? Yeah, good time. We've got 3 Liverpool fans that I can recognize in the chat, from Dread, Salah, and obviously Chris. So let's quickly give a shout out to the haulers, and then we will get going. So Super Haulers, thank you guys for supporting us as always. Harbour Boy, Daddy Bot, Greenback Golf, Sarah Gatsby, FPL Robbie. And then the rest of the haulers, Akshay, Tursk, C Hunt, FPL Penguin, FPL DG Boy, Lindsay, Devindra Raj, FPL Casuals, Tom, Stuart Fletcher, Mr. Twister, Blonde, S. Scottish M, Firetog, FPL Teacher, Oscar Arias, Doni FPL, FPL Mike Halpin, Sean Burke, Jack Daglish, Nehal, Kevin Rose, FPL Safa, Podner, FPL Craig, Dread FPL, and Dom. Nice to see lots of the haulers here live as well. It's nice to go to UK friendly time for me. I'm very happy about that, and it's a rare occurrence. Normally we go 3 hours after this, so thank God for that, because I need to go to the office tomorrow to do my other job. I consider this my full-time job, my real job, and that one is like, you know, my side hustle. So
well, you judge it based on how much time you put into each one, I'm sure. But yeah, we can go at a UK friendly hour, thanks to we made Mariner walk the plank for this one, so he's swimming with the fishes, as they say.
But no worries, we still made him send the data. So as always, if you find this episode helpful, please do hit that like and help the channel. Subscribe if you're new. And obviously, if you do become a YouTube member or a patron, if you're a podcast listener, you can join the Discord for a community of about 30 of us and get access to all of Mariner and Gabe's data a few days in advance normally. Obviously, today we've literally gone live before the data could even fully update. So that will be coming to the Discord soon. Mini league update. Obviously, the website hasn't updated yet. So, so I've kind of just taken it from FPL Gameweek, what I could get hold of. So number one at the moment is Misclick Torge Yosang. I definitely think I pronounced that wrong. I don't know if you want to give it a try, Gabe.
Oh wow, this would be a new one for me. I think you did a pretty good job on. I would say Torgir Jasam.
Well, hopefully they can let us know if we were wrong.
Yeah, I hope so. It's always fun to learn.
Yeah, so they've cracked 700 points, 715 points. The young shot is Chris Fee. He's 706.
That's a Libero FPL right there.
Oh, that is Libero. Nice. So he's obviously done a few episodes on one-offs and stuff on the channel with us. Good to see him back again soon, hopefully. We've got lots to score. Lottie Adele still sitting up there at 704. FPL Milanista, owed by Eid. Always doing well in every format, every year. God knows how he does it. Spain without the S. Payne, Connor Hunt, 703. Solso, Matteo Penaloza. Is this your son?
That's my son.
He's beating you.
He's beating almost everyone. He's like at 7K or some shit like that.
That must be both a proud moment and a painful one for you. When we overthink and they just make their own decisions pretty quickly and just buy someone. And
well, here's what I tell him. I tell him to sort the players by ownership, and then pick his favorite player with the best fixtures. Look at the fixtures and pick his favorite player.
And how old is he? Just so the listeners can know.
He's he will be 11 on November 11th.
So he's cracked 700 points, guys. The rest of us really need to do some catching up. I'm sitting on a net. I'm just gonna have a look. 632 points. So it's a long way to go to catch him. It's nearly 80 points. So that's obviously a target for me now to overtake your son, hopefully by the end of the season, because otherwise it's very embarrassing to lose to a nearly 11-year-old.
Well, why do you think I'm putting him out there in front of everybody? So I hope he's the target of everybody. It either makes him better or at least it helps me overtake him as well.
Yeah. So just enjoying sixth with him. We have Toley, David Hood, 702 as well. Brokeback Mount, Dan at the FPL Way, 699. Sane side up, Matt Pryor, 697. And in 10th, poorly managed team, Kiel Iverson, 694. Who knows? Maybe that's Iverson, the goalkeeper's cousin or something. But let's keep going. We have a few more people in the chat. I'm just going to quickly acknowledge before we get on with the show. So I've started some questions for later. We've got Akib's tuned in as well. We've got, obviously, he's still gloating over that victory from the Netto That Haul team that got me back for my betrayal running my own.
You know it. And then we smashed it again this week. How do you guys do this week?
Yeah, so we ended up drawing 1-1. I can only blame myself because I had myself and someone on the bench. And last minute, I put us both in. And the people I took out both, I think they had a net of 42 points more than us. And we only lost the score by like 15. So that 1-1 would have been, we would have won the squad score. And I'm just a bit gutted by that. And also, second striker, they got 1 point less than the bloody goalkeeper on the opposite team. So we got one striker scored, one striker missed by 1 point. Our goalkeeper kept them out, and then completely
sounds like you pepped your team.
I did. I over-tinkered. I've realized if I just stuck with the initial submission, we were fourth, I think, joint fourth, so we could have been coming up the table. But what a shame. And quick shout out as well to Chris. Thank you so much, man. Big support as well. He's just become a hauler. Love to see you supporting the channel. Thank you so much. And then anyone else here? So Nima's Arsenal escape today. I'm sure we'll get to that. We got FPL teachers tuned in as well. Thanks for dropping in. Congrats on the 10-pointer from Raya. And then what else do we have? I think that's, Dred's just saying, cracking the rum open. We have a new hauler. Yeah, so welcome to the boat. Welcome to the crew. And make sure you get into the Discord. If you struggle to get in, Chris, let me know and I'll tell you how to do it. But you just need to go on the Discord website, I'd say, over the app. And in there, go to user connections and set up your YouTube account, and it will automatically add you in. So let's go to the philosophy of the week. let's start the show off properly. There's already 27 people here. Thanks for tuning in, everyone. Looks like the UK friendly hour suits a lot of people, not just me. So glad to see a big turnout already, just a few minutes in. But why don't we let you do the philosophy with as I feel like without Mariner here, I need to comment on the man on the toilet seat for any new podcast listeners. Come and check it out.
Yeah, that's right. We're gonna need. I mean, somebody's got to be lost by these quotes, and without Mariner here, I guess that responsibility falls on you, Nima. This week's quote for FPL Philosophy of the Week for Game Week 12 comes to us from Robert Brault, and he says, "We're kept from our goal not by obstacles, but by a clear path to a lesser goal." And I think this resonated with me because of all of the I think immediate reactions that we tend to have to injuries, to benchings, to form, to all sorts of things, and sometimes we get sidetracked. We lose kind of like the bigger picture. For example, like I'll take the James injury for example, right? I think it made sense for a lot of people to to move James out, especially after they heard the news he was going to be out 8 weeks, right? But he wasn't really going to drop in price, and a lot of people had cover. So maybe like that was like a distraction from a greater goal. And so in making that James transfer out, right? I think a lot of people are now left with hitting to field a complete team this week or something like that, or having a suboptimal or not going for upside potentially, not making an upside transfer because you transferred in a second Palace defender or something like that. Something that makes sense, right? But that and that's why it's a clear path. And the goal makes sense, but it's a lesser goal than that greater goal. So just I think a call to broaden our lens a little bit.
Yeah, no, I agree. Luckily, I did stick to the bigger picture last week. So I had Justin who could have come on for James. And I thought having 2 free transfers next week would be good, which with Maddison's yellow card, it turns out it really was. So you should have seen the celebrations of that. There was Maddison owners cheering that Maddison got a yellow card at the FPL meets in London because they wanted a reason to sell him for a hit. So I'm glad I didn't make that mistake and I did get the Justin 6-pointer. However, I think at the same time, I've made mistakes earlier. So players like Foden, who I wanted to get hold of, I didn't because of the blank. He then had back-to-back hauls until this recent blank. Could have even had a goal today, right? So I just feel like I was kind of thinking about this lesser goal of the blank and didn't think about the points that one of the best teams in the world could get me in the meantime. So I'm going to try and learn from that going forwards.
That's exactly what happened to me on my wild card. I went with I was going to go with just one premium and then spread the funds and go with Foden and all these players, and I didn't because of the blank. So I made the similar mistake of that following a clear path to a lesser goal.
Yeah, I think it happens to all of us, right? It's just good to try and reassess once the dust has settled and try to avoid doing it every game week because eventually something's got to work for me. And I'm hoping next week is, which I'll talk about my moves later, I'm sure.
So my son, right, he brought in Tosin for James. So he's got 2 good fixtures. Tosin benched, Gahey off the bench with 7 points.
See, this is the thing. Sometimes everything you touch turns to gold. When you're on the burner, you're on the burner. We used to say this a few years ago where when you see someone's doing really well and at this stage they're already in the top 10K, you kind of want to keep an eye on what moves they're making because like, let's say I've got a 50-50 and I'm picking between like Bowen and Maddison. If the guy who somehow everything he touches pays off is going for Bowen, I'm like, okay, until his burner this like stops, he's just everything he touches turn into gold. Like I'm keeping an eye on that guy. So
totally,
there's a few people in the community who are like that, and I do keep an eye on. I think this was a famous thing back in the Scout Forum days where people would always be monitoring not necessarily the elite managers over time, but the person who's having just an incredible season.
Managers in form. Exactly. There's a new content idea. Tracking managers in form.
And then just a quick shout out to Harbour Boy as well, another one of our haulers. Good morning from New Zealand. Got FPL Pharmacist, good to see you. And then we've got a question from Kaftan. I'll star this for the questions later on. If you don't get to watch all the show, we will timestamp it so you can go to the Q&A afterwards as well before Tuesday. And if any of you have to leave before your questions are answered, do check them out. We will get to them. So let's kind of just go into the show then. Let's go straight into the matchups. Obviously, I've put Trossard as one of the captaincy options on the thumbnail. I'd love to hear more about from your perspective, especially for NetxG and the shot predictor model and then the FDRs from Mariner that he's kindly provided in like literally an hour after the match. Let's talk about this game, because I think a lot of people with Madison out, they're potentially now going to captain Trossard. Like there was some captaining him anyway, but now it's going to be more of them. And I think especially non-De Bruyne owners who can't get to Salah easily, or the Andy Martin cult who don't want to get to Salah, well, like basically like Trossard seems to be the one they're all going to captain. I've seen a few Trippier captain shouts and some Solanke in people's thoughts, maybe a bit of recency bias there. But yeah, let's talk about this game, because I think obviously Nottingham Forest, they're like they are absolutely shocking. I think when Villa played them, I'd said to you at the time that they'd conceded 18 goals in 6 games, including like 6 goals against promoted teams. So they are truly horrible at the back. Is there a world in which you wouldn't own Trossard? It's a bit like if you had Madison and he's out now, for me, it just feels like that ownership of Trossard is about to skyrocket. And we always talk about a -4 being a -2 in a blank game week, because you're going to get 0 anyway. So as long as you get 2 appearance points, -2 is hopefully the floor. Is the ceiling high enough with someone like a Trossard to maybe take the hit in the midfield position rather than in the defensive line? Because I've got James and I'm looking to just keep him basically, because I don't see enough upside in -4ing him to a defender. So Trossard's like the guy I'm going for basically.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at the and just so people know, obviously these are abbreviated slides. We don't have any of kind of like the tactical analyses or heat maps or anything like that. Literally, like, well, Mariners data isn't updated, so it doesn't include game week 11. The NetxG and the shots model goal predictor is all updated. All of that data is current. So this will be kind of like a data special show. And from a data perspective, we see here like the Brighton they've been firing so many shots that's why the shots model goal, the goal predictor, is so high. It's 25% chance of 2 goals. Let's see, about 14% chance of 3 or more goals is decently high. But I think like when we're talking about Trossard, it's just like it's his role in the squad, right? And when you look at the holes that Forest leaves, specifically between their back line and their D mids, and you just see Trossard wreaking havoc down in between those lines, and the fact that he goes wide and gets moved around. He gets that Serbi likes to move him around like a chess piece as well. He moves him around from side to side, front, back. He brings him deep to receive the ball sometimes to help penetrate the lines. Sometimes he'll send him further forward to get in behind the line. So I just think that I think Brighton have been a little bit on a mix of unlucky or unfortunate and a little unskilled in finishing, and that's why their shots haven't gone in. But I think he's been I've had the captaincy on him for almost for several days now, until today. I just switched it. So I'm still undecided as to captaincy, but I think Trossard is a legitimate shout and would probably be my first transfer in.
Yeah, I think he's my priority move. In fact, I made the move last night before he price rose. I thought with 2 free transfers and plans to take a -4 anyway, all my players who played today blanking game week 12. So even if they got injured, like my City and Arsenal players today, like what was good, like they weren't going to play next week regardless, right? And then I'm wildcarding. So, but yeah, quick shout out as well to Noah Jurgens. Hopefully I've said that right. First time tuning in, and hi FPL Claire or Claire FPL. But yeah, I guess on that point you made about Trossard not looking necessarily as great as we were hoping since the hat trick, like last 2 games, obviously he has seemed a bit more reserved. Part of me kind of wonders like what that might be down to. Is it the opposition they've faced? Like Brentford had just been battered, right? Was it 5 goals they let in against Newcastle? I think the manager had said in the presser like they were going to be very hungry to kind of put a good record of themselves on the board after what had happened. So maybe there's something in that as well. It was away as well, right? It was at Brentford Stadium.
Mm-hmm.
They'd just been humiliated. They didn't want to get humiliated again. It can go one of 2 ways, right? You get humiliated and then you collapse, or you get humiliated and you bounce back. And I feel like maybe Brentford there, and especially Tony and being so clinical, it's just an unfortunate game for them. I think the XG was basically both of them had about 1.6 last game, and obviously they lost 2-0. So I don't know if that's the kind of game you often would expect to see. So I'm hoping like against a team like Forest, as you say, that the shot model goal predictor here, like it's essentially expecting 24% 0 goals for Brighton. So that's what, like a 75% chance that they score.
Yeah, I guess from the shot model goal predictor, equal chance 0 goals as 2 goals. I think you could see it that way. But the other thing, what I've seen from Brighton, from De Zerbi in the past 2 matches, is I think we're seeing how De Zerbi ball goes wrong. Like we saw how it goes well, right? When it goes well, we saw what could happen, right? But when it goes wrong, it's like playing like, and this would happen with Barcelona sometimes. If you play these teams that play a lot of like small passes, right? And you confine their space and you don't let them get behind you, then they have no way to convert the small passing into intermediate and long passing that's more penetrating. Where you see like Brighton's shots have been like kind of this like small pass, small pass, small pass, or short pass, short pass, short pass, and then just kind of like a little chip or a little poke or something, and they're not these like shots really in a lot of space unless they're too wide. So when they're getting space, they're a little bit too far wide, and then when they're in the middle, they're not getting space. So they need a little bit more horizontal passing, I think, to open them up. But like teacher was saying here, let me look for Forest laid a system is a 4-3-3 that favors the wingers, not central players. So this means Trossard and Martin do for big ones, maybe Pascal Gross as well. So if not, and this is where Nottingham Forest has been a little bit naive this season, is if they're going to open up like that for Brighton are going to destroy them. But if they're gonna just basically pack the middle like the way that Spurs and Brentford pack the middle, then I think that's kind of how you disrupt Brighton. So we'll see how Nottingham Forest is going to play it. But either way, I think Brighton will be able to get through.
Yeah, I think, and then just on the Neco Williams side of things, obviously I was worried that he'd lost his spot to Aurier. Don't think you expect many points from him, especially if we're saying that Brighton should score quite a few goals. But when you don't have 11 players, like you need everything you can get and just hope he doesn't get a minus. With Aurier not even being in the squad on Saturday, I can't imagine a world in which Aurier then starts on Tuesday night, just 3 days later. So I do feel fairly confident now that at least Neco plays. Obviously, with Dimitrovic doubts, fairly confident now that he plays. So at least a few of those issues in my team beyond City and Arsenal players seem to have sorted themselves out. But I don't think there's much more to say about Neco. Like, I'm not expecting a big haul from him. If you get some kind of fortunate assist when you lose, it's like 3-1, then great. But I don't really see much more beyond that in terms of his hope. Why don't we go to some of the next games then, and we'll keep going. I'm just checking if there's any questions specifically on this in the chat. I have started Abbas's question about Salah and Solanke for Madison and Kane, so we'll get to that later. Salah, the Samurai, has just transferred in Trossard last week, and he's hoping he doesn't forget how to play football. So, yeah, we'll see how that goes. I think Akib might captain Mount as well, so I'm sure we'll talk a bit more about Mount's new role under Potter and how he seems to kind of be playing at his best again. But yeah, we'll get to him. So Crystal Palace versus Wolves. Obviously, there's a lot of people with Palace defenders such as yourself. I don't know anyone with Wolves players anymore, but if you're out there, let us know. Tell us your thinking. But yeah, obviously I have Zaha. I don't have any of the defenders or the goalkeeper, but I've been very disappointed in Zaha the last 2 games. He's just been like standing on the sideline a bit and not even looking like he wants to really play. I don't know if that's just me kind of misunderstanding what's going on, but Leeds for a while in the first game that they played, they were just like all over them. Do you remember that match? At Leeds were basically like the first half, they just absolutely dominated them. And then they didn't seem to be able to keep it up. And then Palace looked much better in the second half on 1-2-1. And again, like obviously in this next game, since I got him, the 0-0, again, he just didn't look like he was doing much. I'm a bit worried. Like I was hoping to keep him till the World Cup. They have great fixtures going into that period. But now I'm a bit kind of concerned. Like, is this someone I keep on my wild card? Obviously, I keep him against Wolves in this game, but what do you think about Palace going forwards? Is it that perhaps the defensive assets are more viable? Is Gaeta like a good goalkeeper for my wild card in 13 potentially with those fixtures? And what do we think about Zaha? Is he cheap enough that he's still worth a punt with those fixtures, despite what he's been looking like these last couple of games?
Yeah, I mean, I think the data is going to be skewed for Palace here because of the difficult fixtures that they've had. So we're looking at like pretty comparable or like comparable data to Wolves. They look like quite similar teams as far as NetxG is and the shots model goal predictor are concerned. So just for the podcast listeners, and I forgot to do this on the first one, so I'll remember moving forward. We have Crystal Palace with a NetxG of 1.1, 1.21, and Wolves with a NetxG of 1.3. The shots model goal predictor it's about equal across the board. Not going to quibble over a couple percentage points. It's kind of equal from 0 goals to 4 goals. Mariners FDR slightly disagrees, I guess, from an attacking perspective, sees it as worse for Wolves. Probably because Wolves basically don't convert and they have no attack. So I think that's understandable there. And then the zonal matchups but what's interesting, the zonal matchups are kind of cumulatively better for Palace, yet the FDR is not that much better. So, or the zonals are quite similar compared to the FDR, is what I'm trying to say. So I'm not sure what that is about. And then kind of neutral headed matchups. Um, I think Palace, they were overrun by Leeds in that game. I think they didn't have enough defensive coverage. I'm not sure if did Schlupp miss that game. Somebody missed that game.
Yeah, I'm not
But it was
sure because that
quite
was
an
a few
attacking
matches
lineup.
ago, wasn't it? That
Yeah.
was obviously the game week 10, I think it was. But yeah, they did look much better in that second half. I guess on that note, is Edouard at 5.3 million someone that we're interested in? So I had my eye on him as someone who could be an enabler. He's nearly 500,000 cheaper than Solanke is at this point. The worry with him that I noticed was he does get subbed very early,
Yeah.
and there isn't just Mateta. Like he could be subbed for Elise as well. Elise. So I think he got subbed for Elise, then Zaha got subbed for Mateta later on. I can just imagine getting Edouard on that wildcard in 13 for the 4 juicy fixtures and Mateta suddenly the starter again or something. So I do think even though he's very cheap, I do think maybe Solanke being nailed on and we assume he's on penalties, maybe it is worth that little bit more.
I mean, if you're in this price range, hold on. There was somebody that I was looking at that was mentioned. I think Akash.
Mhm.
Akash wrote a thread, and he mentioned somebody that I thought was really smart in that kind of like budget price range. Daka. I think Daka's better than any of these. And if Daka's starting at 5.7, it's on a better team. They attack more. Still decent fixtures. Leeds home, Wolves away. Then they have City, but then they also have Everton, West Ham. In that price range, I think Daka is probably the best shout. 5.3, obviously, much cheaper for Edouard, but like you said, there will be games where he gets subbed off at the 53rd minute or something. They doesn't even make the 60, and
Mm.
that's the concern, right?
I guess the worry with Daka then is still Vardy, right? Like I know he's yet to kind of start this season, and I question if he will. Maybe it finally is too late for him. Like every year, we've always thought, is it the time now where he's too old to cut it in the Premier League? And every year he's carried on doing well, but this season, I don't know if it's him or if it's just that Leicester haven't been that great. Obviously, everything seems to have gone through Madison, and yeah, so I don't know. Like with Madison out, are Leicester even going to play well in this fixture in game week 12 without him?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. Without Madison, what do Leicester have? How like who are they, right? Without Madison, what I will say is Daka started in 4 out of the last 5, but again at 5.7, so temper expectations. He usually doesn't play 90 minutes, so I think that's a concern as well. But at 5.7, I guess you can take that kind of risk.
Dread is saying Vardy is done in the chat. So I do actually see that someone here, I think it's Claire, she's got hold of Eze. So I do really like Eze. I think as a football player, he's a baller. Like he's very exciting to watch play. I think he got his first goal, was it last week?
Yeah.
Not maybe it was against Leeds. Sorry, not against. Obviously, it was 0-0 against Leicester. But he's very exciting. He is much cheaper than Zaha. I guess the appeal at the time when we went for Zaha or when I went for Zaha was just the penalties. But Zaha can act like very petulant at times, and I do think he is potentially always capable of getting a yellow card for mouthing off to the ref. Not even necessarily for like a bad challenge, just for mouthing off. He can act out a bit, and I do kind of think maybe if you're already on Eze, like you've not made a bad choice at all, and at that price point, I would probably hold on to him till the World Cup now, unless he gets injured or something, obviously. But for now, he's good enough. Like I wouldn't be looking to invest in any more Palace assets now that you have him.
Yeah, I mean, I think Eza is a little bit unpredictable because I think sometimes when Zaha disappears, when he's too far wide, that opens up the space for Eza to kind of move in there and get some shots in that left half space. But I think in that price range, I'd much prefer someone like Xhaka.
because he was still like 5.1. I guess with the blank is obviously not a go, but when it comes to that wild card I have in Game Week 13, he's someone I will consider. I'm considering going Saka over Jesus just because of the 4 yellow cards for Jesus. And Saka now has 8 returns in his last 7 games. He has 4 goals, 4 assists. He's just playing great, and I don't want to have that looming 5th yellow card on me. I know there was that, a few years ago, Diego Costa was on 4 yellow cards, and
Yeah.
people buy him because he was going to get the 5th, and he never did, and he scored every week. So that's also possible, but I just feel like I see enough in Saka that I'm willing to go there potentially after the wild card and have like a Martinelli Saka double up. And if I do that, then it doesn't really leave a space for Xhaka. Like if I had a third Arsenal, it would probably be Ben White at 4.5 million. I don't know if I'd go for the full 5 million in Saliba. But yeah, let's just go to the next game. And there's something from Akiba I wanted to touch on, but I'm sure when we come to that team, I can bring it up. And it's, like magic, Bournemouth versus Southampton. So he says Solanke and Billing is the new Antonio and Ben Rama from last year. I think we shouted out Billing a few weeks before. I think at 5.5 million, he is a steal. So he does look very involved, and he's part of most of what they do. He was very good last season as well, actually. I know a lot of people who play like Fantasy Championship, and he was a baller in that too. So I can't see much wrong with him. But in this matchup specifically against Southampton, Hassan Hutel is obviously touted as potentially being one of the next managers to get sacked. What are Southampton going to do here away from home in a South Coast derby? This is like a big rivalry for them. It's a big game. It's a huge occasion on the South Coast. Bournemouth have looked incredible under the new manager. They've yet to lose a game in the league under him.
So we've been and credit to actually to FPL Teacher, who was the first one I heard to kind of really highlight Billing in several of his pods dating back several weeks now, and Philip Billing has returned in 4 of the last 5 game weeks, I believe. Is that right? Something like that. He's got 7, 9, 3, 10, 5 in the last 5 game weeks. He's at the center of everything they do. While everybody was talking Solanke, Billing is there like, hey, it's all me. It's all me. He creates the plays. He finds the targets. He does the late runs into the box at the end when the targets find him. So he's definitely kind of like at 5.3 million. I think decent value, especially with like Southampton, West Ham, Spurs and Leeds. I don't know. I think Leeds are not as bad defensively as people are saying. That it's not that easy matchup that it was last season. So I think
is it at Leeds as well, the game, or
it's at Leeds. Yeah.
So I think they obviously beat Chelsea 3-0, and in the second half they totally dominated Arsenal earlier today. That crowd is probably one of the most scary crowds to go to in the Prem, after James's Park and a few other clubs only, I would say. It is honestly not an easy task to go there. They might play well in bursts, but they play so aggressively when they're at home. Like it's the American style of football, isn't it? Like very press heavy these days, it seems. And obviously got an American coach. Some new American players have come in Tyler Adams. You've got Aronson, Brendan Aronson. He's American too. Like that kind of philosophy of that hard work ethic we used to see on the Bielsa seems to still be there. They're just not as open as they were because they're not just kind of free-flowing attack necessarily, but they're very difficult to outwork at home, especially. So I do think that you are right, and maybe that would be like a get-off point before Spurs and Leeds just for a final 2-week punt. But up until then, could be decent to hold some Bournemouth players. Any love for their defenders? I know some people have gone in for like Zamora, who I don't know if he's back, but I know he was out 2 weeks ago. There's also obviously Memphis, I think. Any love at all for their defenders? I can't see myself going there on a wild card over the likes of Gahey, but any love at all? Like, do we think that they can maintain the clean sheets? I think they have more home clean sheets this season than Liverpool and City and Arsenal.
I mean, there are just so many comparable assets on much better teams that they're not a consideration for me. I mean, some of them have some attacking threat, right? Zamora gets forward and so on, but I can't. Yeah, I can't have any part of that when I can get defenders from decent teams
Ben
like
White, 4.5
Ben
million.
White for 4.5 or Zamora for 4.4 million. Like, come
I,
on.
I see what you mean. Yeah. What about so Southampton? Obviously, some people have Kyle Walker Peters. Some people have Bella Kotchap or Ketchup, as I like to call him. They obviously were targeting this blank. So when they picked their defenders on their wildcard in 8 or 9, at the time they thought Bournemouth would be a really easy fixture. So they were like, "Oh, Southampton defender plays Bournemouth in that week when my City and Arsenal players don't play." Should those Southampton defensive asset owners be as optimistic as they were back then, or are we actually expecting a kind of Billing and Solanke masterclass here, and maybe some minus points for the Southampton defense?
Oh, I think people who brought in the beautiful ketchup, Bella Ketchup, brought him in for the name. Let's be honest. Like, you didn't bring him in because a Southampton center back is going to give you a bunch of returns. So come on, the name is still pretty cool. So I don't know. I guess do your thing. I don't have much advice on that front. I would not be bringing in Southampton defenders, just like I wouldn't be bringing in Bournemouth defenders, I guess.
So I think beyond kind of the idea that Solanke and Billing are both viable budget enablers going forwards until the World Cup, I think there isn't much more to see here from either team. Let's go to the next one. I have been starring your questions, guys, as we go. I do see some questions about whether to like play a free hit or take a hit instead, and also about Iwobi from Salad Samurai. We will get to those in the question section. So if you can't watch the whole show, as I said earlier, that we will timestamp this. So you can always look back before Tuesday, and we'll make sure we answer your questions. So Brentford versus Chelsea. See, there's a lot of Tony owners. It's at Brentford Stadium. It's a London derby. Chelsea, however, on the Potter have looked great.
They've looked. It's like every week they're improving. They look like something a little more and a little more and a little more, right? I mean, Mings made them look really good this weekend, I guess. So
Basically gave them an assist for the first goal.
yep. So aside from that, quite similar here in terms of NetxG and the shots model goal predictor. 1.51 NetxG to 1. For Brentford to 1.71 for Chelsea. The shots model goal predictor, I guess I would say there's a slight favoritism. I would say like a 2 percentage point favoritism towards Chelsea. And then from an FDR perspective, Mariners FDRs here, it actually likes Brentford more. It has an attack of positive 0.7, whereas Chelsea's 0.2, and then the negative counterpart for the defense. The zonal matchups, ironically, it likes Chelsea more as far as the zonal matchups for Mariners FDRs. And then the headed matchup, roughly the same with a slight nod to Brentford. This one's going to be really interesting because I mean, this is going to be like a tactical battle. Like these are two teams that, or two managers that love to change tactics in the game. So I mean, this game is
formations as well, right? Like I was surprised to see Brentford playing with a back four. In fact, on Friday night to start with, I thought they'd go to a back five, but they didn't. And against Arsenal, I think they did play a back five. So they alternate, and same with Chelsea, right? They can play the back five. Maybe with James out, they will play back four sometimes. It just depends if Cucurella and Chilwell are both going to be in, or just one of them, and then you have Loftus-Cheek as the other wing back versus Azpilicueta at right back potentially.
So if you had like this will be the interesting battle, right? Because it's you have Brentford that can line up in a 4-3-3 or a 3-5-2, and they're much better in the 4-3-3, right? But if Chelsea line up in a back three to counteract the 4-3-3, like against a three up front, like you want to line up in a back three, so you isolate that center forward, right? So he has nowhere to go. So if they line up in a back three, right, then Brentford mid game can change to a 3-5-2, and if they change to a 3-5-2, does then Potter change Chelsea to a 4-2-3-1? This is all mid game within the game. So like to talk about the tactics of this one is very much going to depend on game state, what's going on in the game, who's showing up in the game, what areas of weakness are showing up in the game. So I think tactically this is very tough to predict. So from a data perspective, it's quite even across the board. But I think that one thing that's kind of agreeable here is that there should be some goals. The defensive matchups across the board are much weaker than the attacking matchups. So a draw with goals would seem likely here.
I think FPL teaches us as well. It all depends on whether Wissa plays. He was scoring off the bench for quite a few weeks. Obviously, when they do play the 4-3-3, they do have him starting. So it kind of very much depends. In terms of today, Neil Cheeseman makes a very good point. I do agree with this. I think Arsenal were very fortunate to get a win. I definitely think Leeds didn't deserve to lose that game. And everyone was kind of sending around the XG stats afterwards of, obviously Bamford missed a penalty, so that adds a lot of XG. But Leeds had like over 2 XG and Arsenal had like 0.5. Obviously, Saka finished a very acute angle shot that I don't know how he managed to get that in, but he did. However, when you look at today, it was all the Kepa show. Like without Kepa, I don't see how Chelsea would have won that game. And in this scenario, it was actually Chelsea who had less than 1 XG, and it was, their opponent, Villa, who had like over 2 XG. Mm-hmm. So again, I feel like perhaps they did kind of do a lot better than, like the result kind of flattered what really happened in that game. I think Villa were very good. Bailey got subbed quite early, but it turns out he's going to be fine as well for the midweek for anyone who has him, just because he'd been told by the medical team, Steven Gerrard had been told that, he can only play 30 to 60 minutes. So he gave him the maximum end of that and had to sub him. He said, if I could keep him on for the whole game, I would. So I'd be very confident going into the next game. I'm sure we'll talk about the Villa matchup soon. But there's a question here from Claire, which is relevant to this game, which is starting Raya in goal. Obviously, you have Raya, but Chelsea or starting Ward versus Leeds. And I'm sure we'll come to the Leicester. We'll come to the Leeds and Leicester matchup too. But what are your thoughts there? I'm assuming you have Ward, or do you have Iverson?
I kept Iverson.
Okay,
I don't.
So you have to play Raya no matter what.
Yeah, okay. I don't have this decision, thankfully. Wow, that's tough. I think you start. I guess when I'm faced with a decision like this, I just start the better player, and Raya is obviously miles by far the better keeper. So I'd start Raya with gritted teeth.
It's a tough one, isn't it? Because I guess we expect Leicester to potentially concede, and I guess when it comes to these decisions for me, because I hate having 2 goalkeepers. Obviously, with Ward, I've had 2 keepers this season, and like I started Sanchez this week instead of Ward, and that wasn't great. I always ask myself, which one would you be more annoyed about benching if they returned? So, like, would you be more angry if Raya gets like 6 to 10 points on the bench, or Ward, and the other one blanks? Because for me, like, I will always make sure I play the player that would piss me off more. So this is what happened last week. Like, I could have played Andreas over Mitrovic, like some did, and I kept telling myself, I can live with Andreas points on the bench, but if Mitrovic points were on the bench, I'd be beating myself up about that. I wouldn't be very happy. So there was like no world in which I could then, knowing that, go and start Andreas over Mitrovic. So I would say have a think about that as well. Also, equally, I do think, like, realistically, I'm not expecting either of them to keep a clean sheet. So it's going to come down to save points, and Ward doesn't really make saves. He got his first save point 3 weeks ago. Raya has obviously shown that he's a great shot stopper. He's done it previously as well, not just this season. So, yeah, I guess it's a very tough one. I'd almost say, like, flip a coin and just pray, because there's no right answer. FPL Sparta says Kepa looked world class today. Yeah, I do think so. We'll talk about the rotation risk at Chelsea as well, and obviously we'll see what we think about whether Kepa has got the number 1 spot from Mendy and how long that might last going forward. So he's obviously started quite a few now on the Potter, and I know Mendy was injured for a bit, but it does seem to be Kepa's space to lose now at this stage. And if he keeps pulling in performances like he did today, I'm not sure Mendy's going to get back in that easily. 4.4 million for Kepa, another player to consider on that wildcard. I know the defensive fixtures for Chelsea aren't great once you get to Game Week 13 onwards. They do also have United as well coming up, Man United. I was going to keep James on that wildcard. Obviously, he's out. So maybe Kepa at 4.4 million. That's the way into the Chelsea defense if you don't trust any of the other lower league players, like in terms of bottom half goalkeepers like Keita and Ward. And because those are the other options. Like, I've seen Pickford in there, and like Everton have good fixtures. Like, maybe you just trust Kepa instead.
Yeah, I think that's a fine budget budget option for sure.
Cool. All right, let's go to Liverpool West Ham. This is a very exciting game, similar to the Brighton one, which we looked at first, which is obviously mainly because it's going to be a big captaincy option. So
Yeah.
people wildcarded back in Game Week 9. Obviously, back then Liverpool were playing Brighton. They kept on to like Liverpool assets. Since then, this week, like people like me who've got De Bruyne, I'm looking to move to Salah, for instance. I've seen people like Andy Martin who were going to wildcard in Game Week 13. He's actually brought that forward to Game Week 12. He's sold Haaland on the wildcard and he's brought in triple Liverpool strikers. He's brought in Firmino, Jota, and Nunes. Yeah, like I love the way he plays the game. It's genuinely like it's just something I couldn't do. But you know, me and him were neck and neck last season, and his tactics last season also worked out for him. I imagine he has a plan to get Haaland back, but he's attacking this fixture with 3 strikers.
I think the strategy is brilliant. I love it, and I hope it works out. But yeah, I mean, Darwin Nunez. I think we saw today that he is very much a project, and that's how he was bought. They hope he develops into this world class player. But I mean, and he does some things extraordinarily well, right? His movement is excellent, right? The way he fades around defenders and finds space in behind defenders is fantastic. But he's not great with the ball. He's not great with vision. He's not. I think his finishing is actually fine. It's not terrible for the most part, but he's not great with his head. So the kid has a lot to learn. He's never played in a top league. I think so. Because of these reasons, as a footballer, I think to bring him in as an FPL asset for close to 9 million, when there are other kind of, I think maybe better value forward options, I think is a little suspect. In this one in particular, and then in the match though, NetxG has a Liverpool 1.66, West Ham 1.06. I'd say the biggest difference is. Yeah, I mean, once the score, according to the shot model goal predictor here, obviously once the score gets higher, it's going to favor Liverpool. West Ham are going to try to keep this cagey, maybe play that 5 at the back. Maybe Emerson gets another start. Although, did Emerson started? Did he start at the wing? Did he start further forward today?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I think there was a couple of defensive injuries. Zuma and Kelleher were both out for West Ham, so I'm not sure like if he's going to carry on playing. Obviously, he's a very cheap asset. It's a tough one because I guess you could go for him over Neko on the wild card as well. I wouldn't obviously be buying him for this blank game week fixture though, like not in a million years. I think if you had Bowen, like great, like maybe I expect Liverpool could concede, but yeah, I think beyond Bowen, there's not really anyone I would want. Skamaka's quite exciting as a cheap alternative, 6.7. I think he is now, similar to Mitrovic. West Ham have great fixtures through to the World Cup after the blank. So once his Liverpool fixtures out the way, maybe Skamaka's someone you take a punt on if you think he's going to outscore Mitrovic in that spell. But yeah, I don't think I'd be investing in the West Ham defense personally, even though those fixtures are very good. But if we are sure Emerson's going to be playing regularly and he is playing as a fullback or wingback, for that price, like you got to think the West Ham defense is better than Forest, surely.
Sure, but I don't think there's any way. Like, I mean, he's just not going to play regularly. So that's
the big issue. Yeah, like I don't trust him to be playing. Yeah,
I mean, if you're looking to invest in West Ham defense, and obviously this isn't the week to do it, Kerr is probably your safest bet. He's been moved around. He's played center back. He's played right back. FPL teacher mentioned that he's a much better crosser than Sofal. So he's much more of a utility player, and I think he should solidify his spot there at 4.5. In this one, Mariners FDR likes Liverpool at 2.4 with West Ham at -1. And the zonal matchup slightly favors the right over the left, although not that much, not as much as we've seen in the past. And then the headed matchup is, slightly favorable for Liverpool here at 2.6 and West Ham at 2.0. But I don't know. I don't see this as, I think last season Liverpool, they destroyed West Ham at home. Was it? I don't remember. I want to say that.
I think it was a pretty big scoreline. Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm a little, I don't see that here from a statistical perspective. And as I say that, I also recognize that there's a Liverpool team here that's just gaining form, but they're also not going to have a manager. Klopp is suspended
He got his
getting
cards.
in the assistant referee's face there really hard on the when Salah got fouled, which was a foul to be fair. But
I think it was a foul. It was a weird one, but I suppose you can't just like sprint over to the assistant ref, the touchline coach, like just shout at everyone in the face. You're not going to get away with that.
it's shocking behavior, honestly, and I don't know. Klopp needs to hold himself to a bit of a higher standard. He's been known for these outbursts in the past, and I just find him a little immature. Just my opinion. Um,
But in
but I
terms
mean,
of captaincy, is
go
this a
ahead.
fixture that you think these metrics would back up? Like, if you had a Liverpool attacker, would they be in your consideration over a Trossard? Do you think there's a chance here to gain like a Liverpool captaincy at a huge differential compared to like where they'd ever been in the last few years in FPL?
I think given recent form, you have to. Salah, a hat trick in what was it, 6 minutes or 8 minutes?
Yeah, off the bench, hat trick, played a bit more centrally today as well. Firmino was kind of dropping deeper in that front three, and then Salah was kind of playing a bit further up. And then even once the substitutions happened, Salah then moved to I think the Firmino role, so just behind Nunez, and then he
Mhm.
was still playing centrally. So Klopp did say in his interviews that he can play on the wing too, and like actually like it doesn't really matter. And I do think with a player of that caliber, like once you get that goal against City to win the game at Anfield after a hat trick, you got to be feeling like, just from a psychological point of view, like it's as good a time as any, like to be captaining him, like personally. And I've got De Bruyne, so for me, it's an easy decision. I'll be going to Salah, and I can't see a world in which I would captain Trossard over Salah, not after what I've seen the last two games from Trossard.
Hmm. Yeah, they're on opposite ends of the form spectrum, aren't they? And that's why I was on Trossard, and then I just see those shots not going in, and them not getting enough space centrally, and I think, well, and then I look at Salah and what he's been able to do. I think you correctly point out that when Firmino plays and Salah has more freedom, but I think also what Harvey Elliott is he's he's not ready. He's blocking passing lanes. He's standing in areas when Salah's like, if Harvey Elliott moves and Salah has a lane to come to kind of bend around inside, and Harvey Elliott's just kind of standing there. So I see him in the way a lot. And someone here mentioned in the chat about low blocks. Will Wood, as an LFC fan, I envisage still having difficulties versus low blocks, especially with Jota Diaz out. Still capping Salah, of course, for Will. So I think that the captaincy for me is between Salah and Trossard, and I'm really undecided right now. It's the form versus fixtures debate at this point.
I think there are some who have Trossard, they won't own Salah, and they're still going to captain a Liverpool attacker. So if you were buying one of the three Liverpool forwards, whether that's Nunez, Firmino, or Jota, which one would you be looking at? Because I was originally going to do De Bruyne to Salah and Jesus to Wilson, but
Mm-hmm.
because of the new -4 I'm taking, that I've already taken Madison to Trossard, it's actually left me with 9 million for the Jesus replacement. So I can get Salah,
Mm-hmm.
Trossard, and 9 million. And that means all three Liverpool strikers are available to me. So now I'm a bit like, okay, Darwin started on the bench. Firmino scored a lot so far this season, but do I really want him? Me personally, from my perspective, it's Jota, and I'm hoping that you're going to back that up and give me more reason to go for it. Because my view is with with Diaz out, I just feel that Jota is like going to be the only one who's close enough to being as nailed as Salah is. Like I'm not convinced between Firmino and Darwin, like they're almost competing for the same spot if they don't play the new formation with all four of them on.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a tough one because I think what Liverpool need most right now is a player like Jota. But as someone
Dread has
mentioned,
said, yeah, he said we need some Bobby trickery to break down West Ham. Yeah.
yeah, Dredd says need Bobby Tricky to break West Ham down. Maybe, but then when you think about that, then Bobby's dropping into the Declan Rice, Thomas Socek space. That's not a good space to operate, right? So what do you do instead? Do you pop balls? Like if West Ham come in with a back five, right? Then then you have to play the balls wide in front of that back five
Yeah,
and
no, I see what you
hold
mean.
those
It's just
triangles
like,
until the defense shifts, and then you can go through the middle. Um, So I'm
By the way, so Jota was apparently stretchered off. I did see him get injured. I didn't realize he was stretched off. I didn't realize it was so bad. So that's a bit of a worry. But I guess then that kind of means that surely all of Firmino, Nunes, and Salah are basically nailed on, because like if Jota can't play and it's a quick turnaround before this game, I'll
Fabio
wait.
Carvalho could play on the left side.
Yeah, so he could take that spot, and then Firmino and Nunes could still bloody not both start potentially.
Yeah, and I think that's always going to be the risk. But if you're looking just from a football perspective, Darwin shouldn't really. He'll start an occasional game here and there, but he really shouldn't be considered just like a starter at this point. Maybe it depends on what the team needs. But Firmino's the highest scoring Liverpool player in FPL.
Yeah, I know. I wouldn't have believed you if you told me at the start of the season. I guess the flip side is if Nunes has just had his rest with 3 games in 7 days, Liverpool have the shortest turnaround time between game week 11 and 12, the whole league, and they also have the shortest turnaround time between game week 12 and 13 in the whole league. So Firmino could start, I guess. He was subbed early, but then that would mean he doesn't start the 3rd game, you'd think, especially with Champions League then back.
Yeah.
So then you've got to almost work backwards from that. So if it's Champions League 3 games from now, could it be that Nunes starts this one after not starting? So he starts against West Ham. Firmino starts the weekend to stay fresh for the Champions League, and then he gets subbed early and then starts in the Champions League again. So what do the Liverpool fans think in the chat? Like, what are your thoughts on that in terms of rotation? Obviously, you've got a very short turnaround time.
From an FPL perspective, I would just ask, like, are these the conversations that you want to be having in your head?
Well, yeah. So the alternative is getting Wilson. I'm sure we'll get to that matchup. And my view is obviously we've seen Isaac is now out until after the World Cup, so Maximan isn't nearby. They did a great job today. They drew with Man United. The parts of the game I watched, I thought they were unlucky not to be ahead. Joe Linton hit the bar a couple of times. There was a few incidents where I was just surprised they weren't already ahead. But yeah, so I think for me, it's kind of like maybe it's a money fallacy where Wilson was my original plan, but now that I've got this extra money, I'm thinking, let me just get 2 Liverpool attackers against West Ham. Maybe it is still Wilson at home against Everton. Maybe that's where I go, right? But see what the guys in the chat think. Let's go to the next game. I think we've got 3-4 more games to get through, and then we'll go to the Metric Captaincy. So it is obviously Newcastle versus Everton. Speaking of Wilson, most people at this point have Trippier, if not, and Pope. I obviously don't have Pope. The defensive coverage is over 100% ownership-wise. So every time they get a clean sheet, if Trippier doesn't get some kind of extra return, I actually lose rank despite owning him. So that's a fun situation to be in. Do we think the double defense is viable going through to the World Cup? Or what do you think of some people I've spoken to who are looking to downgrade Pope at this stage and actually free up the funds like 0.8 million to go to like one of the cheaper 4.5 goalkeepers and just keep Trippier?
I elected to go the cheap route. I understand why people went Pope, and I may have gone Pope if I would have wildcarded early. NetxG has Everton with 0.9, Newcastle with 1.54. Newcastle with almost a 32% chance of a clean sheet. So it's not great. It's not great, but it's also not terrible. Around that 5 million though, when you're looking at, a lot of people bought Trippier when he was close to 5 million, and Pope is was 5 million as well. And Trippier is just such an incredible asset. At that price, especially compared to Pope. So I think I'd rather go cheaper on the goalkeeper. Mariners FDR likes Newcastle quite a bit more here as well, with a positive 2.8 FDR for attack, and a positive 0.4 FDR for Everton's attack. And the fact that Newcastle is home, I think, gives them a bump as well. The shot model goal indicator really likes them with this 27.5% chance of 2 goals, which is pretty decent. 20% chance of 3 or more goals, which is quite nice for Newcastle. You could see like a 3-1 or something like that in this game. But again, I think Everton, they've been scoring goals. So they get their 1 goal a game. They've been ruining clean sheets. They're the clean sheet wipeout team. So I don't know. I can always see Everton kind of nicking one here or there. And against Newcastle, who's going to be playing on the left for Newcastle? Why was Burn there? I'm not really sure, but I think Everton's right side could benefit against Newcastle here. Did we lose you or did we lose me? If we lost if we lost Nima, can someone in the chat just help me out so I can kind of like keep the ball rolling here? If we lost me, then you won't be hearing me, so it's fine. Got it. Thank you. We lost Nima. So, yep, there it is. It's just me. Okay, Nima says he's reloading. I'm gonna go back to that matchup. I'm just gonna leave myself here on the screen though. Nima's on his way back in here.
Can you see me now? Yeah, I think I could still hear you, but I couldn't see either of us on the actual show. So I think that was me who disappeared.
Yep. And there he goes again. So I don't know what's going on with Nima. We were looking at just while Nima gets back in there.
Back again. Keep going in and out. Yeah, God knows what's happened to my internet there, but
we were just finishing up the Newcastle versus Everton. I don't think there's much more to say here. I mean, the shot model goal predictor really likes goals for Newcastle here, so I wouldn't be surprised if Callum Wilson definitely got some nice action.
Maybe I just stick to that plan and forget that I have the extra 2 million because I can't decide which Liverpool attacker I wanted. Jota, and if he's out, I'm not convinced I want Firmino or Nunes. I do agree that with Mariners FDR with a 2.8 here for the attack, I also think it is a potential Trippier captaincy shout for anyone who doesn't have like Salah, for instance. I think he's an alternative to Trossard. He's currently my vice captain, but we'll see how that goes. Yeah, let's go to the next game.
The defensive FDR wouldn't support that though. Mariners defensive FDR there.
Yeah, no, wouldn't. Yeah, I know, but I think just on the attacking side, just to get that attacking return, I'd hope. But I don't know if you caught what I said at the end, which was that I think Jacob Murphy played on the left wing and Almiron on the right wing, even though he normally plays midfield because of the injuries to St. Maximan. And also, it looks like Shaw and Bruno Guimaraes both seem to have been subbed off, but then it has like a little injury symbol on them on SofaScore. So I don't know if they kind of got subbed off with some kind of knock and they're probably going to be fine, but we have pressers, right? United versus Tottenham, this is a huge game. So this is going to be the battle of two teams who are both obviously trying to show that like they're coming on and things are looking better for them. United have looked much better in recent times. Tottenham have actually, I had a look, it's interesting. They've had their best start to a Premier League season since 1963. So that's fucking huge. That is actually crazy. Like, in 60 years, this is their best start to a season. Kane's blanked once. That was game week 1.
Wow.
So there was someone in the chat asking, should I sell Kane this week to Solanke and Maddison to Salah? I don't think I'd be selling Kane in this fixture personally. I think Kane you could keep going through to the World Cup potentially. The fixtures for Spurs are great after this as well, especially if it's for a hit. I don't think I would do that, but the NetxG does seem to favor Spurs here. So for the podcast listeners, it's 2.03, even though they're away from home, versus 1.4 for United. However, the shot model predictor, it's got both teams at like 37% and 35% for a goal each. So I'm not sure a clean sheet is coming. So any kind of Perisic owners, new Doherty owners, some Dyer owners. Some people bought Dyer for Reece James instead of Doherty. Depends how you play FPL, I suppose. But I don't see a clean sheet for any of the defensive assets here. 2 goals is pretty good as well, right? 24% for United, 26% for Spurs. I could see like a kind of a 2-2 here. I can imagine a very scrappy game, a real intense battle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, feisty, intense. I think a 2-2 is likely, or any combination of 2-1 for either side, I think is also likely. Just to note, I guess Spurs, yeah, the NetxG, all the FDRs kind of agree that. No, hold on a second. So NetxG likes Spurs more, and Mariners FDR likes United's attack more than Spurs attack. And that might have to come to like a style of play kind of thing. Not sure. Have to kind of peel back the curtain of the metric and look behind us, look under the hood. But yeah, definitely a goals. I think across the board, statistically speaking, they see goals. Now, here's what I'll say: if both teams come out, like from a tactics perspective, if both teams come out playing counterattack, that could negate all of these stats. If they're both just trying to watch each other play and just sitting back, so the tactics could kind of make irrelevant these stats. We'll see.
There's a few nuances as well, like whether Ronaldo starts up top or Rashford, whether Spurs play in the 3-5-2 and bring in the extra midfielder in Basuma. I know Richarlison looks injured. Kulusevski doesn't look ready. So perhaps they will be in that 3-5-2 away from home, want a bit more midfield control. Who starts between Ronaldo and Rashford will shape things tactically. So you're right. I think we expect goals, but it could equally be that they do fully just negate each other, and it's like a 1-0 or a 0-0. It's perfectly possible. I remember there was a period where under Ole, whoever came to Old Trafford, like Liverpool, it would always be 0-0 like every game. They would just not do anything to attack, and then they wouldn't concede either. So it is possible. Spurs, I don't know if this is still the case, but up until recently, they had conceded the fewest big chances this season. So they don't really let many big quality chances through either. So I think United would have to be very clinical to get any chance to get through. Dread is saying 0-0 this match. I take that. Is there a conspiracy that Spurs get a penalty every single match this season? I don't know. I think Kane's penalty was a penalty in the last game. I do think as England captain, he gets some leeway with the FA and the media, and I won't go beyond that, right? As Mourinho says, if I speak, I will be in trouble.
Spurs have conceded the fewest big chances. They've conceded 10 this season, but Wolves have conceded the second fewest.
Yeah, Wolves have just scored their fourth goal of the bloody season a quarter of the way through. I couldn't believe it. When that Neco clean sheet got wiped, I was like, wow, like Wolves have actually scored. Like, how bad are Forest? Like, my God, like you've let a team with 3 goals in the season score on you like that. That fucking hell. Shocking stuff. Let's go to the next game. We'll start to quickly get through because quite a few questions in the chat as well. Some questions about -8s and extra stuff like that. So we will get to that. But Fulham versus Aston Villa, there's a lot of Mitrovic, Andreas owners. I assume both play with so many blankers in your teams. There's some Bailey owners out there. Don't think anyone owns anything else from Aston Villa. But what are we expecting here? Like, because I would have thought Fulham at home would kind of dominate, but then Villa were quite unlucky. It was a Kepa masterclass earlier. Are Villa kind of like, is it one of those things where, you know, when there's a animal in the corner, fight or flight mode, Gerrard's going to get sacked. Like, there's 3 games this week, and if he loses this and the next one, there's no chance he survives. He's already come out with quotes like, oh, you know, when I took over, we were 2 points above the relegation zone, and we'd done this and that. And I looked at it, and I was like, he was like, we were 17th or 16th, we were 2 points above the relegation zone. And then I looked at the table after his quote, and I was like, dude, you're 2 points above the relegation zone now. And you play worse football. Like, Villa fans don't like the football you're playing.
And you spent a lot of money.
Yeah, like, you've spent money. You brought in your ex-homie Coutinho, etc. You've built up your own squad that you wanted. And, like, what's going on here? Like, you're basically in the same position that the last manager was in when he got sacked. Needs it allegedly on the penalty conspiracy. I see. I don't know. I just think this league is pretty funny. So, as I say, I think Leeds were unfortunate earlier to lose the game against Arsenal. But when I saw that linesman give a red card to Gabriel and a penalty for him being fouled by Bamford, I did think that was a bit strange. And then when I looked at the penalty that Bamford got, the same linesman was standing in line with the player that got the ball in an offside position in the build-up to the penalty. VAR looked at that too as well, and no offside given there.
Wait, you don't think it was a penalty?
The first one, there was offside when he got the ball before it went into the box for the penalty. So how can the linesman be in line with the guy? I got a photo of it. Like, he's literally in line with him, 1 meter from him. Like, the guy is in front of him, and he receives the ball in an offside position, throws it in the box, and then gets a penalty. If it wasn't offside, then yeah, it was a penalty, of course. It was a handball. But It was offside in the build-up. So how come VAR can look at that? And how can the same linesman stand on the bloody side and not see that offside and VAR don't give it? And then that same linesman then gives a red. The ref didn't give the red to Gabriel. That same linesman who didn't give the offside. So my point is that these guys are just incompetent. It's just shocking. Like, it's meant to be the best league in the world, and they're honestly embarrassing. Like, every week, there's decisions that are not consistent. I'd be happy either way if there was consistency. If like each week the same type of offense got you a penalty or not. I think you saw it in the Liverpool game, right? I think Klopp himself came out and said that he thought it was a bit odd that essentially they let play go on, that they're allowing more aggressive tackles to happen this season, as we've seen is the new directive. They don't want to break up the game. They let play go on all game, and then they disallowed the goal for City. And he said that himself. Klopp said that. So I don't know what Liverpool fans think, but his point was that like you let the game go on all this time, and then when it's in the box, then suddenly it's like, oh no, we won't let it go on. That's what happened with Odegaard a few weeks back against United, right?
This isn't a mystery. It's not even controversial. Yes, the rules are different in the box. Like, accept it.
So
Everything.
So what about Odegaard? So the Arsenal goal that put United 1-0 down, the ref was letting everything go, and then he pulled it back and said Odegaard fouled someone for the same sort of challenges that were being let go all over the park throughout the season in every match. So this is what I'm just trying to say. Like, I just think that there's inconsistency overall. Like, they need to all do the same thing. And Sankar makes a good point about there should be a promotion relegation system for the referees across the major leagues. Someone was telling me that in the lower leagues and grassroots, all the good referees just get bullied out of it. They get abused, and there's not enough protection for them, essentially. So there isn't, there doesn't seem to be like a new crop of referees coming through. And I do wonder if it's because they're not protected enough in the lower routes. But anyway, the overall point was that I just think each week I'm seeing different incidents, right? Like, I'm seeing one week like a penalty for a handball, same incident next week is not a handball. It's just I do understand what you're saying, that what happened in the box with City, that's different because that's in the box, and obviously that you got to like look at that properly and review it. But
discretion changes. It's the referee's discretion that changes in the box, and I think that's normal.
Yeah. And I think that's the thing for me, is just like, why is there so much inconsistency in the Premier League? Like, we've been seeing it week in, week out. VAR is in the controversy as well. So I don't know. But in terms of just this game going back on track, so if you have Mitrovic and Andreas, I think obviously you're going to play them. Whatever the metrics might say in terms of like that it could be 0-0, which it could. I do think Villa are like a caged animal, is what I'm saying. Like, they're on their ropes. They are like potentially about to sack their manager. Mm-hmm. And I question if that kind of means that they're going to have a lot more fight in them, or they're just going to capitulate because the players don't want him. So I think normally when a manager gets sacked, they've lost the dressing room. And this game will be very telling for Gerrard. It will be basically like, if the players don't show up, it's because they don't really want to play for him, is what I think. And they're trying to get him sacked. This happened at Chelsea. It happened at Arsenal with Emery. It happens normally whenever a manager loses, the back room. But
yeah.
What do you think long term then for Fulham? So I wouldn't be looking to invest in Villa assets going forwards, but long term for Fulham, Andreas just seems way too good, especially if you got him a 4.5, to ever be removing from first on your bench as an option for when there's maybe injuries and suspensions going up to the World Cup. Unless you're looking to play a 5-man midfield and you want to upgrade him and have a dead third striker, I don't see a world in which you'd sell Andreas. Is there a case for Mitrovic? Because I think Mitrovic has some good fixtures still, even after game week 13. But I had a look, and the last two fixtures before the World Cup, they're not that great for Fulham. And part of me was thinking that could be an exit point for Mitrovic, where for the last 2 weeks you punt against him. And that's what I'm potentially looking to do. So I'll tell you what the fixtures are very quickly. So he's got Villa now this week, obviously at home. He's got Leeds away, Everton home. In game week 15, he's got City away. And in 16, he's got United home, Man United home. So part of me was thinking for City away, Man United home, I could see myself going for another striker just for a couple of weeks. Like if Skamaka's nailed on and he's playing every week, West Ham have great fixtures, right? So that's my thoughts there. My thoughts are still that Mitrovic is fine and he's probably not going anywhere in the short term, but there is a small opportunity of an exit point just for 2 weeks.
I don't know. I still think I don't envision a time, unless barring injury or suspension or anything like that. I don't envision a time where Mitrovic is the biggest problem in my team. So to be moving him out because he has a tough fixture, got him at 6'5", 6'6". He's still only 6'7". It's just too good value, and he's an aerial threat. He can come through in any counter attack. He's the focal point. Like when Fulham sit back in a shell, it's route one to Mitrovic. So anything that happens is gonna be through Mitrovic. So I don't know. Maybe on Wildcard, if people are considering a different path, a different way forward, maybe a different structure or something like that, I could see maybe you want to upgrade Mitrovic. I could potentially see that, but I still think his value is too good. Even this matchup with Fulham 1.45 net XG compared to Aston Villa 1.34. It's quite neutral, like you said. Strong chance of a 1-1 in this one. But Mariners FDR actually likes Villa more, likes Villa attack somehow. 2.0 positive for attack for Villa and only 0.5 for Fulham. But I think Mitrovic is a staple. He is in my team at least.
Well, I remember when we did the roast my team RMT stream before game week 1, there were some teams that had Mitrovic in their game week 1 team, and they were going to bench him at Liverpool. And we said we didn't want to start the season with him, but if you were, we would not be benching him.
Exactly.
And he got 13 points in that fixture, so in the 2-2 against Liverpool. I think for me it's a bit different. I got him at 6.9, so he actually costs 0.2 less now than I paid for him. So I guess it's a slightly different scenario for me, and I would still keep him on the wild card. It's just for those two tough fixtures, because you got to remember I'm wild carding for 4 weeks. Yeah, he's 6.7, and I got him at 6.9.
He went up to 6.9.
Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So he's dropped a lot since I had him. But I guess my point is, if I'm wildcarding in 13, right? So I'm not going to make a transfer in 14. I'm going to have 2 free transfers in 15.
Mm-hmm.
My team will be 2 weeks old. So yeah, like you're right. Like I won't have any problems. I'll just have a guy who's great, nailed on penalties, plays great, but he plays City away, United home, and like
United home is not a bad fixture.
It's not, but when I compare it to, say, like I had a look at I think it was Newcastle. They have Southampton away, Chelsea home. I guess yeah, that's not great. I'm swapping them, but it would have to be someone who has great fixtures. I think it was maybe West Ham Scamacca. I think that was the one. So like if Scamacca's still looking like he's the starter, which at the moment he very firmly is at West Ham over Antonio, it's like a changing of the card situation. He has Crystal Palace home, Leicester home. So he has 2 home fixtures, Crystal Palace and Leicester. And I'm like, okay, I could see myself doing that if there's like nothing else wrong with my team 2 weeks after the wild card. So it's a punt. It could go wrong, but I'd be him. It would be very much a fixtures play.
Yeah, it's a fixtures play, and there's definitely reason for it, and you'd have to weigh it with the benefit that gets you somewhere else, like the kind of player that it allows you to bring in elsewhere as well. But I would say that they have very different roles for their teams. Whereas Mitrovic is just very much just the spear, the tip of
talisman that we talk about. Like the talisman. You want the talismans from each team in FPL.
Scamacca's not the talisman. It's still Bowen. Scamacca's presence there, even as a hold-up player, is to open up space for Bowen. He will get his. I think Scamacca's a good player. He's very interesting. I think he's like 6'5" or something like that. But I'd want the talisman.
Yeah, no, that's I think very fair, which is why I ran it. On that note, Solanke has Leeds away, Everton home in those weeks. So I'm just looking at who's around, who has fixtures. But let's go to Leicester Leeds then on that note. So obviously Maddison's out. I think whether you have a wild card or not in 13, I would be looking to sell him this week. He has City, I think, 2 weeks after that in game week 14. I just feel like everything that he is the talisman at Leicester, talking about talismans, but I think with that yellow card and the suspension in this game, which we obviously wanted him for most of us, like I don't have Trossard in home to Forest. Like I can then wildcard him out when he plays City in game week 13. It just, to me, it seems like a no-brainer to be bringing in Trossard, because yes, I'm taking a -4, but otherwise I'll be getting 0 points from Maddison. And as long as Trossard gets 2 points, we were saying that the floor is -2, but I could see a world in which Trossard gets at least a goal or 2 goals against Forest.
I agree. So I think that's an easy move.
I'm chasing a ceiling there, basically. A high ceiling, I'm hoping. But we'll see how that goes.
Let's take a moment to shout out another new member, second new member of the show, Claire FPL. Thank you so much. Really means
Yeah,
a lot.
thank you for supporting the channel and for being here live with us on this Sunday evening as we wrap up Game Week 11 and swiftly move into Game Week 12 in 2 days. If you do want to join the Discord, you'll see a lot of this data a few days in advance normally as well. And there's lots of different chats and RMT channels, and we chat to the kind of 30 strong community there. So have a look at how to join the Discord. You need to create a Discord profile on the website rather than the app, ideally, because I think it causes issues in the app. And then afterwards, you go to your user profile settings, and then you go to connections. And as long as you log in with the same Google or YouTube account you've become a hauler with on YouTube, you'll automatically arrive in the Net That Haul Discord. So let us know if you get stuck and DM one of us on Twitter and we can help you out. Hi as well to FPL Routine, who's tuned in, and Sandcastle's penalty takers are fixture proof, just talking about Mitrovic there. So great. So Leicester, you've obviously shouted out Daka as an option there. I still think, based on what we've just said about talismans, I think Solanke at similar price point and not having that rotation risk, I still think I'd go for him over Daka at this stage, just with Vardy's threat being there. I know Iheanacho's a forgotten man, but he's still there somewhere. Like, I don't know what happened after the end to that season he had 2 years ago. He's basically been unused by Rodgers. So Rodgers, another guy who was close to the sack, but he seems to be surviving just about. So I don't think he'll be the next one. Leeds. I've seen some people who already have Trossard moving Madison onto a Leeds midfielder. What are your thoughts there? Because I think there are obviously some exciting options. You've got Sinistera. He might be a bit too pricey for some. You still have Aronson. There's Harrison, which we know Mariner got earlier this season. Rodrigo played up front today.
Yeah, I mean, what I'll say on Vardy, so Vardy and Daka are the opposites. Vardy has started one of the last 5 games, and Daka has started 4 of the last 5 games. So I don't know that there's that much of a threat. I think the threat is that they play in every game, so that they won't play a full 90, and that's the downside to Daka. But I don't think Solanke plays a full 90 either. You'll have to correct me on that if I'm wrong. The FDRs are, well, NetxG likes Leeds over Leicester here, with the shots model goal predictor as well. Just favors them actually a fair amount, with almost 25% chance of 2 goals for Leeds, whereas Leicester only have about a 19% chance of 2 goals. So yeah, plus about 6% for goals for Leeds. Mariners FDRs, on the other hand, are quite even. 0.6 attack to 0.8, 0.6 attack for Leeds to 0.8 attack for Leicester. What's different in Mariners FDRs is the central matchup for Leicester. That 4.7 really stands out, and then that brings me back to that Daka pick.
Yeah,
but it's especially this game week. But regarding the Leeds midfielders, I don't know. I have to say I don't. I think I don't see anything consistent through anybody except for Sinisterra. And like you said, Sinisterra's, I think he's maybe 0.5 million too expensive compared to similar assets. So, but I think for those like interested in the vibes, I think Sinisterra is a fun pick and could get something here. But this has like again, like probably goals in this game. 1 or 2 goals for each team in this game. Whichever way it goes, I mean, it's kind of tough to predict.
Just on that, we've got some people in the chat as well. Teacher, I think, as well. He said he's just finished reviewing Arsenal Leeds, and he's talking about how good Leeds were at home. Obviously, they aren't at home this week, but he says wonder if they can bring that over with them on their travels away to Leicester midweek. And I think your NetxG probably agrees with him, whereas it is a bit more neutral in Mariners FDR.
Yeah, and just a shout out, Teacher. He's about to record his 100th pod of this season, just this season.
I'm just telling Claire, you don't need to have actually signed up to Discord with the same Gmail or email that you have for YouTube. You can kind of sign up to Discord with any email, but once you have signed up, you just need to. I've sent some chat in the comments. You need to essentially, in the Discord account, go to user settings and then connections, and then there'll be a YouTube section. And when you click that, it opens the YouTube or Google overlay, and it's in there that you need to log into your same Gmail or same YouTube account that you've used for the membership on YouTube. That will add you in automatically. So Let's finish the matchups. Let's go to the data. We're at 1 hour 24. We're going to get to the questions in the chat as well. So these are the Game 12 matchups in whole. For anyone listening on podcast, we're at 1 hour 24. If you want to come to the YouTube and just see all the matches this week, both from the FDR away, attacking wise, defensively, the zonals, left, center, right, and the headed matchups as well. They're all on one very handy slide at this point. So anyone who wants to just see the picture and maybe you're using it to make a decision on who to buy. I think the top ones this week we see for attack, it's actually Brighton against Forest at 2.9. It's Newcastle versus Everton at 2.8. Liverpool versus West Ham at 2.4. And Villa against Fulham at 2. There's kind of a big drop-off after that. The next one is United against Spurs at 1.1 and kind of drops significantly from there. Defensively, it's not looking good for anyone. Brighton Forest, 2.5. Dunk Sanchez owners there. That's an option, I guess. Bournemouth, Southampton, 1.5. Got Liverpool, West Ham, 1. Southampton, Bournemouth, 0.9. And then, again, there's a lot of negatives and sea of reds. Is there anything here that kind of screams at you? I guess for me, it's just that maybe Wilson with that 2.8 attacking FTR is actually a better shout than trying to shoehorn in like a Liverpool striker to partner with Salah when I'm going to captain Salah. Like, just don't put all my eggs in that one basket of a game that might not go so well.
Yeah, it's lined up there pretty nicely. Even with the headed matchup lines up nicely as well. For Callum Wilson there across the board. Yeah, I mean, I think the green for the attack, all the green on the attack side and all the red on the defense side really shows that it's not really the time for defensive transfers. Like, there's not much defensive upside out there, unless you are maybe. I mean, for this game week, obviously you mentioned a Brighton wingback, for example, maybe Solly March attacking that Nottingham Forest left-hand side. I think could get something, a double return here. If you're making a defensive transfer and it's for one game week, I think Solly March could be. Wait, he's a midfielder in the game,
That's
isn't
the problem. He's a midfielder. I was just checking if he is a midfielder, but I'm pretty sure, yeah, he's a midfielder. So that's not
Yeah,
great.
it's on a different platform that I'm playing.
Estupinan gets subbed early. I think Dunk is the man. For me, so someone actually asked earlier in the chat. I'm going to find the question now and just answer it now instead in the Q&A section, because I'd said that I wasn't going to sell James. So originally, my plans were KDB and Jesus to Salah and Wilson. I was going to do a -4 for James to Dunk to get 11 players out, but with Madison's yellow, I've prioritized my -4 for Madison to Trossard instead. Based on this, I don't see enough upside for me to take another -4, because although, yes, I've said it's a -2, like if Brighton keep a clean sheet, that's a 2-point game. If he gets a goal, okay, it's 8, but like I just don't see that. So
Yeah.
I also already have Sanchez. So I'm like, I can just play Sanchez to cover the ownership of the Brighton defenders against me. And then I have James Justin, who I'm going to play instead of Ward. So I'm going to have my one Leicester defender, but it's going to be my defender, not my goalkeeper. And I'm going to have my one, Brighton defender, but it's going to be my goalkeeper, not the defender. So I'm like, I'll just field 10. I'm good. Like, these FDRs especially give me more confidence now that it's okay. Let's not go for a -8, like just to get in Dunk. Like, it's a bit pointless. And there was some appetite for maybe Trent or Robertson. It's not great. It's one. The third or fourth best defensive fixture, but I can't do that. Not when we know that Trent's just come back from injury. Robertson himself had just come back from injury. Simicast is there. There is Champions League in a week's time. And these guys, Liverpool, have the shortest turnaround, we said, between 11 and 12 and 12 and 13. So, again, like a -4 for that. Yes, I'm dreaming of like the old Robbo Trent Halls, but I just don't think it's worth it. So I'm willing to play 10 players. And when I wildcard in 13, that's when I'll sell James and move him on. So that's my thinking there. Anything specific on the zonals? I guess we've covered it in the matchups individually as we went. So let's keep going. So FDR long range, there's obviously for anyone who's thinking about like buying an asset that they can hold on to up until the World Cup. So it is at 1 hour 28. If you're listening on podcast, it shows you all the fixtures for attack and defensive FDR all the way through from game week 12 to 16. So you can see these last 5 weeks of the season until the break.
Just some standouts here. It is kind of hard. It may be a little bit difficult to see because there's a lot of information on here. But just some standouts from 13 to 16, especially for this is instrumental for people like you, Nima, that are looking at that wild card in game week 13. We have for attack, obviously, the best is always City at 16.9. Liverpool at second best at 9.0. Then we have, what is that? Spurs at 6.3. Then Arsenal at 6.2. In defense, the best ones are City at 6.7. And then look how much worse the defense is, right? City at 6.7, Spurs at 6.5. And then everyone else is kind of below 3, or other than West Ham.
So West Ham's worth noting because they're 5.4 for attack in that period and 3.6 for attack. So for defense. So
Yeah.
there are options there. But when we looked at Emerson, I had a look at him after we spoke earlier, and he got subbed at half time, I think it was. So, or 59th minute, even worse, just before a clean sheet was possible. So yeah, I'm not sure on that. Attacking wise, though, Bowen looks good. A Spurs attacker looks good. Doherty is 4.6, I think. He's pretty cheap. It was very telling when he came off. I could see the way Conte embraced him. And he's come out in the presses after and said, the Doherty of last season, you're finally back. And I think Doherty did an interview himself recently where he said he wasn't at his level. He's been coming back from like a knee surgery, and like it's taken him a long time to get going. And I think Spurs fans, as much as Emerson offers defensively, he completely disrupts their attack. So with those kind of attacking FDRs and defensive FDRs for Spurs, I do wonder about Doherty being quite cheap because yes, he might not start every game, especially after he starts these two while Emerson's suspended. You'd expect Emerson to start in 13. But going forwards, if he continues playing the way he is now, I can't see how Emerson Royale like keeps him out. And it's a very cheap punt to take. And again, it's like from a team with these kind of FDRs versus the alternative, which is buying a 4 million Emerson or buying like a Dunk or buying a Gahey. It just feels like for a similar price to these 4.5 million assets from these bottom half teams, I could be going there. That's something I'm considering. There is Perisic. He's a lot more expensive than Doherty. So I think that's where the potential excitement comes for me. But yeah, he's one to watch for now. I'm going to see how he does. But honestly, if anyone saw that when he got taken off and the way Conte embraced him and the glowing praise he gave him in the press, I was like, okay, like Conte's like hugging him. They're both all smiles. There's a lot of body language. I was like, he's very happy with him. The Spurs fans are all over the timeline. They're all like, oh my God, like our attack finally looked good from the wingback position. Like Emerson Royale isn't there trying to cross the fucking ball.
Yeah.
So yeah, so as much as it hurts me to say as an Arsenal fan, I think he is someone I would consider. Kane, as we said, has only blanked in one fixture this season. He came week 1.
Takes along.
He definitely takes longer. Haaland is going to be in most teams. Like it will be ludicrous not to be at that ownership and that attacking FDR. But people have been talking about having one premium. I don't think that I can do that, which then kind of leaves me in that Salah versus Kane argument. And that's where I'm kind of stuck. And it's like, which one would I go for? Because the models prefer Salah, but Kane is there. He's doing very well. And with the rise of a lot of these budget players, like say Billing, we were talking about, Andreas, who's doing quite well. There are cheap defenders like Doherty, White, Gahey. Maybe, just maybe, you might see me go absolutely mental and somehow try to slap out a freemium just for the.
No, you're not going to do it.
You might see it. A Kane, Salah, Haaland freemium. You might see it. I'm going to see, like, I had a look. The midfield looks fine. The defense looks very light. That's for sure. It's basically like one of Trent or Cancelo. For me, it's Cancelo. And then like 4 cheap defenders where like 2 out of the 4 play every week. But I think the upside from like that could be enough because it's not like I don't need like James and Jesus. I can have Gahey and Kane. That's what I'm looking at. Because with James out, like, it's basically 2 positions that are changing.
I mean, James and Jesus adds up to less than Gay and Kane, but I see what you're saying. I get the point. I think it's just about their allocation of resources, and that's the standard argument against the freemium. If you're not captaining them, then. But to your point, it's for a short period of time. You're not saying you're going to do this for the rest of the season. You see an upside here. I think it makes sense, and looking at the FDR kind of supports that.
I just think it's a very difficult decision between Kane and Salah long term. Like this week, I'm obviously going to buy Salah. I'm not going to get Kane against United away. But going forwards, those Spurs fixtures look great. And like I said, it's Spurs' best start to a season since 1963.
But maybe in terms of points, but not in terms of style of play or shots or XG or goals or anything like that. And then that's what we need for FPL points. To go like on a,
Yeah, you want sustainable underlying numbers, which we've not necessarily seen from Spurs style of play.
and you're extending yourself on a threemium basically to get Kane into your team. And what you're going to get from Kane is consistency, this consistent like 8, 9, 7 points, something right around there, right? And I get that. But you can get that kind of consistency from Foden and from players like these as well. Even at times when healthy from Mitrovic. So I see the logic behind that strategy. I thought about it on my wild card and ended up not going in that direction just because of I felt it left me a little limited in my flexibility.
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. And I think, as I say, like at the moment, that's not my plan. There are people like I think FPL teachers on a freemium, Kane, KDB, Haaland, and he says at the moment, if you don't nail the cheap assets, it turns very sour quick, and that 8 million bracket hurts you. So, that's definitely something to bear in mind. Let's keep going to the captaincy metric then. So this is obviously the main question here. We've been debating all show, like whether it's a Brighton attacker in Trossard or whether it's Salah. We see Trossard is very high on the metric at 95. For those listening on podcast, obviously, he's here 98 haul versus 57 percentile for Salah. I guess the minutes is a bit skewed because of Salah's early subs recently, but I don't expect to see that. We know Salah's a very fit player. He had his rest in the Champions League. I expect him to play these games. It's very important to keep building the momentum of that good result today against City. Returns, though, Trossard 90th percentile versus 55th percentile for Salah. Form 90th percentile for Trossard versus 65th for Salah. The FDRs are, the best FDR of the week is Trossard at 100%. Salah ain't far behind. It's the third best FDR, 90%. Newcastle's the second best FDR, so you got St. Maximan is obviously injured, but Wilson snuck in at the 95th percentile FDR there. His hauls have been lacking, but everything in the data would say Trossard. It's just how much do you back the data over what you're seeing, and it's kind of that. And from what I'm seeing, like seeing a player get a 6-minute hat trick off the bench to then go on and get the winning goal against City. Like I don't see a world in which I could go against that and captain, like maybe it's price bias again, but to captain like a 6.7 million midfielder from Brighton versus Salah, like I don't think I could do that. He's at 80 on the metric, so that's 15 points lower, which is maybe the biggest gap we've ever seen from the first and second pick in the captaincy metric. Is that right?
It's quite the it's quite the difference. He's quite higher up, and the kind of the two categories that are most important to us in the haul and the return category is what's dragging Salah down. But like you said, at the same time, Brighton have 0 goals and like 40 shots in the last 2 games, and Salah has a hat trick in 6 minutes. so I don't. It's really tough. But looking at this, when in doubt, side with the metric.
I guess if you didn't have Salah and you have no De Bruyne to get to him and you have no plan to get to him, I wouldn't be like doing what people were suggesting in the chat of taking a -4 to sell Kane down to Solanke to then turn Maddison into Salah. I would just do Maddison to Trossard without the hitting captain Trossard. So I think it's very team dependent. And I guess if there was ever a week you could captain Trossard and feel a little bit okay about it and not sick in the stomach, it would be this week at home to Forest. And as teacher says, we need to respect West Ham defense a lot more than the porousness of Forest. I think I said it earlier for anyone who missed it in the show, like prior to last week, like Forest had conceded 18 goals in 6 games. Like 6 of them were against promoted teams. They just conceded to Wolves, that was their 4th goal of the season. So it's like, I don't think it gets much better than this. But again, for me, I will be very much captaining Salah. I'll be happy to own Trossard. I am excited to see what Trossard's EO will be going into the game because I think it will be very high. I think people were previously considering captaining Maddison potentially. However, with him out, they're now going to move to Trossard. All the people who can't get to Salah. I think Salah was 15% ownership in my rank. So yes, it will go up a bit, but Trossard's going to go flying. Like he's going to be getting close to 100%, I reckon, this week, ownership-wise.
I don't know. Salah has 10% more owned than Trossard. Trossard's at 17.7. Salah's at 27.7.
So Salah's 15% EO though, where I am. So I'm looking at the actual ownership, effective ownership where I was, and Trossard was a bigger threat to me this week. So Trossard was. So I'm having a look where they are.
At your rank.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's also different. I wonder if at top 10K has stabilized more. Maybe next week onwards, I think we can use top 10K EO because it's stabilized. Apparently, everyone in the top 10K has generally only used their one wildcard, whereas obviously a few weeks ago they would have used like every chip. So it does seem to have been stabilizing. So maybe the top 10K EO is a bit more reliable than it was before. I'm just looking at Salah.
But you're right. The EO around our ranks, like in the 100,000s, whatever, is much lower for Salah. So Salah is 27.7 owned in the game, but only 10.7 owned around my rank.
Yeah, so 14.8% owned at my rank. Yeah, so it's very much like he's not like his EO is not high, and like KD.
What about Trossard? Trossard's more highly owned than Salah at my rank.
That's what I'm thinking. I'm just looking for that. But looking at De Bruyne, he was 41% at my rank. So, like, you know, let's say all of those people turn to Salah, like it's still not going to go up that much. Trossard, because he didn't get return, he's 17.5% at my rank. So he's still like 2-3% higher EO than Salah at the moment. With Maddison getting the yellow, I can see many people going to him. So I just feel like, and then you add the captaincies. There's going to be some I've seen who are going to captain Wilson. They're going to captain Solanke. They're going to captain Trippier. They're all options. Wilson's on here. The rest of them, Solanke, Trippier, I wouldn't be condoning that as a captaincy this week, personally. But
I think Wilson is an interesting one. He's dragged down by the minutes, and then the hauls are dragged down also by the minutes. He has fewer hauls because he has fewer minutes, and then the form. So it's like those three things that are dragging his captaincy score down here are all related. They're all related to the minutes. You increase the minutes, and all the other things increase, and he could be up there close to Kane, just 5 points ahead of him. So I think Wilson is an interesting differential shout.
Yeah, no, I agree. Okay, let's go to the questions. We're at 1 hour 40. I just want to cover some of the questions we start from before, a couple of questions in Discord. So we go to Shiraz's question. So 1 hour 41 for the timestamp, just so we remember later. So Neco Williams to Trent and Bowen to Trossard for -4. So I would not be taking a hit to sell players that have a fixture in a blank game week. Personally, I don't know what the rest of your team looks like. Maybe it's the best move for you, but not in a million years I would be looking to do that move personally. I mean, we're going to do quick fire this section, but yeah, I think C Hunt said to them, Shiraz, keep Bowen if you can, get rid of someone else. I just can't see it, like, because I know they can do Bowen to Trossard for free, so they're obviously hoping for the Trent haul, but I wouldn't be going for that. Like, I could see West Ham getting a goal there as well, so I wouldn't take a hit for that. Need a Neco replacement from Adam. Dunk or Webster already have Gay. I'd personally get Dunk over Webster, but again, I wouldn't be like selling. I wouldn't be using a transfer on a player that plays because, as we said, Aurier was not in the matchday squad on Saturday. I don't see a world in which he can start on a Tuesday if he's not even in the matchday squad. Personally, like, you know, Neco could get negative returns, or he could get 0 if Trossard gets 4 goals. But like, again, I just think there must be someone else in your team. Like, Jesus is the price he started at the season. Like, I would even just do the hokey cokey Jesus to Wilson, buy back Jesus if you want, or because he's got 4 yellow cards and gaming 13, move to get to like a Saka as your second Arsenal attacker. So yeah, again, I just don't like the idea of selling players that have fixtures in a blank game week. It's just something I would not do. Obviously, your risk appetites might be different, so don't let me put you off if your gut says you need to do it. Istiak Hussein is going to captain Kane. So somebody's on questions. They're just comments that were throughout the show that I thought would be good to pull up. So captain Kane, I think the metric doesn't have him too far down. He's obviously third here at 75. So 75, yeah. I like that. I think he could do something there, but it just depends on the tactics on the day. So if you missed that, go back to the timestamp for the Tottenham United matchup. We have... I'm considering doing Haaland to Kane and De Bruyne to Salah. Would that be crazy? I don't think it's crazy. Haaland will cost you 0.4 million to buy back. If you can afford it and you're willing to stomach that, and you believe that owning both Salah and Kane this week will be worth those points, the value you lose in your team, then sure. But I'm sure Salah the Samurai also asks later, like, should I captain Firmino or Salah? So definitely, your name is Salah. You have to captain Salah, man. Don't do this to Salah. Don't betray your boy. Kaftan, Maddison to Mount for -4. I think Madison out for -4. I think that's perfectly fine. I assume they already have Trossard. Mounts looks very good in the new system. He's much more attacking. He's getting returns every week. He seems to be back to playing his best football. And the World Cup is around the corner. He's going to have that on his mind too. So I like that. But what do you think? I think Chelsea's fixtures are obviously they do face United at some point before the World Cup, but except for that game,
Hitting in
good fixtures going forward.
Hitting in Mount against Arsenal doesn't feel good. I don't know. To me, that
No, he's not got Arsenal.
What's that?
But as in, so he's got Arsenal later on. But yeah, like he doesn't have him now though. Like I think the fixture this week is pretty good.
Oh, right. Who does Chelsea play in 12? I forgot.
Brentford away.
Oh,
I see them score.
That's right. Yeah, my bad. I had the wrong schedule of the wrong game day up here. Yeah, I like Mount a lot actually against Brentford. I think that's.
He does have then United. He has United at Stamford Bridge in 13, Brighton away in 14, Arsenal home in 15, Newcastle away in 16.
13 and 14.
Yeah, I think there's a few good fixtures there. I really like Mount. I think you could be getting there ahead of the curve. Aki was talking about Madison to McAllister instead of Trossard, and then Mount for captain. Let's go. Don't think there's anything wrong with the Mount captaincy. If you really want, he doesn't show up high in the metric, but that's probably because the metric's not caught up with the change in tactics and what he's doing for the team compared to what he was doing previously. McAllister, that's a bold shout. McAllister's great in Sky Fantasy. He got points for like shots, tackles, passing tiers. You don't get any of that in FPL, so not for me.
And he's playing further back with under Serbi than he was under Potter.
Exactly. So Salah and Solanke from Madison and Kane. Again, this is the move I think I was referencing at Boss, where I was saying I would probably just not do that because I'd want to keep Kane. So I'd probably just do Madison to Trossard or Madison to Mount or something like that. I couldn't do it. I told Chris, I think already, why I'm keeping James. I just don't see upside in the defenders. I have Sanchez in goal. I'm not going to take a -4 to make it a -8 and get Dunk. Salah Samurai, what do you guys thoughts on Iwobi? He's been getting into good spaces. I think Iwobi looks like he's transformed. His career has revitalized moving into the centre position, playing as like an 8. He's very good for Everton. If you ask Everton fans, they say he's one of their best players in recent times, including the end of last season. They're trying to offer him a new contract. I don't see him as an FPL asset. Again, in fan tracks, which I play, he gets loads of points. He hoovers them up for all of the good actions he does in a game of football. But I just think that there are much better value assets available. I wouldn't be looking to get him. I can see why he's asking because Everton have a great run of fixtures going into the World Cup. Saka or Foden without bias. I think that's just a different question. So for me, that's not even a question. Like Foden is going to be in my team no matter what. Like he is my De Bruyne replacement on my wildcard. Question is for me, Saka or Jesus. I think it'll be wild to not have two Arsenal attackers going into this period. I think in the last 10 games, Arsenal have scored 3+ goals in 6 of them. So there's very few teams. I think City is the only other team that's been getting like 3+ goals a game. For context, Liverpool have scored 3+ goals in one game, the 9-0 against Bournemouth. So yeah, like at 8 mil, I just can't see why I wouldn't want both of them. The only time I wouldn't have Saka is if I had Jesus instead. Jesus' 4 yellow cards make me think of Saka. Saka's recently shown he is on penalties, which we were thinking he was, but now we've seen. You know, he took a penalty at 2-2 against Liverpool. I think without the 5 yellow cards looming on his head, I want them both. So yeah, I don't know like what you're going to do, but if you've got to pick one of them, that's got to be Foden for me, and that's with bias aside. Jude was talking about potentially playing a free hit, but they could take a -4 and play 11. I would take the -4 and play 11 or just play with 10. I think there's so much upside in having a free hit later in the season, especially because every team has a double game week to be rescheduled because of the Queen's funeral. There's going to be FA Cup quarterfinals that need to be rescheduled as well. And when you come to your second wild card, I always find like my biggest gains in the season are kind of like wild carding into a double game week where I can bench boost. But then typically the blank game week that follows it is all the teams that you brought into the wildcard to bench boost. So you actually have no one playing in that fixture. So to maximize like the gains and be able to go all in on that bench boost through the wildcard the week before, you need that free hit in your pocket to cover you in the week where you then have maybe 3 players out of your 15 playing. So I just think there's so much more upside. I think the models say you would want a 30-point gain from your free hit. I don't think from the FDRs we've seen this week that there's necessarily a 30-point gain to be made on a free hit when you can get to 11 players anyway with a hit.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty much all the questions. I'm checking if there's any more before we go to Discord. There is one, which is Trent back on anyone's radar following his appearance today? Great run to the World Cup. And I think there was another question later on about Trent as well. What are your thoughts there? He came on as a sub today. He seems to be back earlier than we were expecting.
Hard
They do
avoid.
still have a... Yeah, I'd avoid. I think obviously he's much cheaper than he was, but I don't think I could be going there at this point because the way my team is, like, I can only have one of Cancelo or Trent at the moment, and Cancelo is the one like I really want. So it's like to get both, I'd probably have to sacrifice one of the 8 million mids. Like I couldn't have Saka and Foden. And I ask myself, like, is Gahey plus, is Trent plus Billing gonna outscore, Cancelo plus Saka? I'm just looking at like what I don't know what the prices don't add up there, but as you can see, that's my example. I think Trent, like when I wildcard, I'll see if I can tinker him in. But for people who don't have a wildcard, I don't know if I'd be ripping up my team to get to him and not for a hit this week.
Yeah, I agree. It's like Trent and Billing or Cancelo and Trossard, kind of. I guess that
Yeah,
that
okay,
doesn't,
yeah,
that
it's
that
like
math doesn't work out exactly either, but it's closer. But no, yeah, I don't think Liverpool defense is something to target yet until we see kind of some systemic consistency in their tactics and individual consistency in their defensive technique from Trent, from Van Dijk, from all of them, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah, so then let's quick fire these. So FPL Josh, he's actually got 715 points, 88 this week, using wildcard next week, flying through the season, probably already in the top 10k. Big congrats to you, mate, doing fantastically. He asks best, I guess it's defender, I think, under 4.6 million, Botman, Gomez, or Dunk long term. Well, the fact that you say you're going to wildcard next week, I don't think you should be buying a defender long term this week before the wildcard. I would just get Dunk for that Forest fixture and just play him this week and then reassess on the wildcard whether you even want to keep Dunk, which I probably wouldn't.
Dunk or Anderson. I think either one, or choose your...
Yeah, Anderson's an option as well. Yeah, choose your poison. We have any other final ones? Here question: how many Arsenal midfielders do we buy? They and their FDR all look so bloody good from FPL Teacher. I think Saka and Martinelli, like they're my picks. It only leaves 2 spaces in your midfield though, which for me is Foden and Salah because I don't want to sell Andreas. So it limits you. If from a structure perspective, there's other midfielders like Mount you want as well, it might be better to try and just hold on to Jesus despite the 4 yellow cards. Xhaka is there as a 5 million asset if you really want like a fifth. If you're playing like a 3-5-2 and you want to play like Xhaka as your 5th mid every week, maybe. But I'm not sure he's worth it over Andreas at that price point.
I think he is, actually. I think Xhaka is well worth it over Andreas and is the best cheapest asset. Like the best value at the cheap asset that you can get, I think, is Xhaka. But I think you brought up a good point earlier, Nima, that he blocks you from, if you obviously everybody has, is doing the game right, has Martinelli, unless he was sold on Wildcard or something like that, which also makes sense. But if you're thinking Martinelli and maybe Saka, you're not gonna, like, Xhaka would block you from Saka.
Yeah, exactly. And like even still, like I like Ben White at 4.5. I'm keeping an eye on him. So maybe I just go Saka, Martinelli, and Ben White, who's still cheaper than Xhaka. Anything else here? Salah, Solanke, Trent for Kane, Madison, James. Again, selling Kane who plays on a -8 to get to Salah, like I guess the -8 for Trent really, because you could potentially, do a -4 and still get to Salah somehow. But I don't love it. Maybe it's just my bias against Trent, and then I'm going to end up telling you don't get him and wildcard him in. So I don't want to put you off it. I think -8 is a -4 this week. If you plan on holding them long term and you don't have a wildcard, then sure. Just remember that, as we said, like Kane's only blank once this week in Game Week 1, this season in Game Week 1, and he has great fixtures straight after this game. So just depends how much you back Salah. If you were ever going to take a -8, this is the week to take it. Do you feel Salah from Sam Williams for KDB as a go? I'm making that move. 100% for me. I'm going to captain him too. Sankaras, hold on to Martial or sell him for maybe Welbeck for a -4. So I don't know what Martial's prognosis is, but obviously Ronaldo and Rashford were playing striker between them. If Martial's missing this fixture, and you can't get 11 players, I'll probably -4 him for someone. It wouldn't be Welbeck, but I'm assuming you said Welbeck because you can't afford Wilson. If you can afford Wilson, I'd go there in a heartbeat. I'm sure Martial and Wilson can't be that far apart in price. But yeah, I'd be looking at Wilson, especially with the FDR and on the captaincy metric. I don't think I'd be going near Welbeck personally. Samos, who's the best forward replacement? So again, I think Wilson's the best forward replacement. If you can't afford him, I'd probably still pick Solanke over Welbeck. And then last question from JGFD. Trent a good transfer or too much of a minutes risk? He's a big differential if he plays, that's true. But we said that game week 11 to 12 is the smallest turnaround of all the teams is for Liverpool. Same for 12 to 13. There's Champions League the week after that, midweek. I just think it's a bit too early yet for Trent, but he's one to monitor. And then let's see some of the recent comments that have come in since we've been answering these. Thoughts on Xhaka on Wildcard cycle? Yeah, so I'm considering it, but I'd only do it if I kept Jesus. So it'd be like Jesus, Xhaka, and Martinelli. But I'm leaning towards the Saka Martinelli team, and there's no way I'm going to have triple Arsenal midfield and block myself from all the great midfield assets out there. So we'll reassess when we get to the wildcard, which I'll turn on Tuesday. So I'm sure I'll be on the timeline telling you what I think. Salah's my boy, just to KDB to Salah. Yep, I'm going to do that move as well. If James was your -4, worth the punt for mine for 1 week. Yeah, like, so James was going to be my -4 out originally, but it's just because now Maddison's out, I'd rather do the -4 on Maddison. I don't want to go all the way to -8 when I have Sanchez in goal, -8 to get James to dunk. It doesn't feel good. But if James is the only one that's your problem, I would -4 him out for a defender. It would be dunk for me, but as you said, Anderson's a great option as well. So Daddybot, would you take a hit to get Foden and Saka in game week 13? Yeah, for 4 weeks. I always say hits are more likely to pay off the more weeks you give them. So the earlier you do that, if you're sure you want those players, the better it is to do it sooner rather than later. Trent plus Solanke versus 4.5 defender plus Jesus. I think I still prefer 4.5 defender plus Jesus. That could, I don't think the Doherty's not 4.5, but it could be like Doherty or White plus Jesus. I need to see more from Trent before I'm willing to kind of invest that 7.3 million or whatever it is now. Solanke's great, but I just think it's one of the situations where it's hard to compare just two positions in your team. I always find it easier to see like all 15 and see what are the weak links. So something I just give a tip, like the way I look at transfers is I don't look at the players I want. I look at the players I want to get rid of. So like I never look at like I have a watch list of these are players I'm watching, but unless it aligns with the players I'm trying to get out, I have an out list. Unless it aligns with the ones I'm trying to get out, I don't force it by removing players to then get those ones on the watch list. So if like there's someone I definitely want out from my team, then that aligns with someone at that price point in my watch list, that's when I'll move on that. And I find that that helps me stay patient and stick with the picks I have for the longer term and not necessarily just jump between them and miss the hauls in between. So that's just the way I think, but everyone plays differently. Yep, non-inebriated subjective assessment of Liverpool, yeah. So I did think you'd be happier this week, Chris. I was very happy with Liverpool. They're my second team, if there was ever such a thing. I'm a big Michael Owen fan. Salah or Firmino to that is Salah for me. Need to go Welbs to afford Trent in game week 13. Okay. Is Welbs much cheaper than Solanke? Like, can you just get Solanke instead? Firmino 2-week punt? Yeah, why not? Just obviously keep an eye on Yotta's injury, and if he's unlikely to be back for the midweek, then
for Welbeck,
maybe,
great.
Yeah, if it's just for 2.
What
for Welbeck? Sorry. Is it affordable or is it quite a big difference?
I like Welbs better more than Solanke. Better player.
Just for the upside of the fixture as well, I guess.
Fixture's better. Zonal matchup.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. Would you do James and Patterson to Robbo or Trent and a Wolves defender from minus to hold on to Haaland, Jesus, Martinelli? I'd rather bench Haaland than Martinelli. Sure, I would sell Jesus for Wilson this week and go back if you want. Like, I still prefer that than getting like a Wolves defender personally. I know Wolves don't concede much, but they're just not a very exciting team. They don't even have a coach yet, right? They're still trying to get Nuno back. Like, they're literally playing without a manager at the moment. I wouldn't be taking a -8 to get a Wolves defender personally. Like I don't think they've looked very good this season. I think the upside in points from like Jesus to another striker for this 1 week, it then also gives you the option of going to a Saka and getting out of Jesus if you're worried about those 4 yellow cards. So it's an option to do something you wouldn't normally get to do. So I would be looking at that one as your hit. And then Trossard's last 2 games, there was 5 Brighton players with better attacking stats. Do I read into? I wouldn't read into stats from a 2-game sample personally, but I think we said earlier in the show I was a bit worried. Yeah, I was getting a bit worried the way he was playing the last 2 games, but I think based on the matchup they have against Forest, we said that Trossard should be able to do very well in this, just because of the way they tactically set up and how Forest set up in their formation. This is going to be a good week, hopefully, for Trossard. So, yeah, I wouldn't look into that too much. We're going to wrap up and get out of here. I'm conscious there are some Discord questions we've not answered from DG Boy, Daddy Bot, Dom, FPL Teacher, and Devendra Raj. I think maybe what we can do, Gabe, is we'll just reply in Discord directly in the coming days before the deadline, because we are 2 hours in and it probably makes sense to get out of here so people have a chance to listen to this before the deadline. But thank you for everyone who's been very interactive in the chat today. Really nice to have so many of you here live with us. I hope we managed to get through all the questions in the live chat. I think we covered nearly everything that was asked, which I'm sure if you go to other YouTube channels, they would not be answering every single question and going 40 minutes over just to do that. So, we love the community. We do this because we love it, and we love all your support. And thank you again, everyone who voted for us Football Content Awards and helped us become a finalist in the Best in Fantasy Football Creators category. We will find out next month on this day exactly, 16th of November, where they'll be making it into the top 3 in the podium finish or not. So we'll keep you posted, but thank you so much for all your votes. If you enjoyed today's episode, hit that like, hit subscribe. If you're on Spotify or Apple, leave a review, please. Honestly, we appreciate all your support. It's been great to have you all here with us live, but good luck in game week 12. May your arrows be green, and we will see you all next time. Take care. Peace
Thursday,
out.
right? I think we'll be back on Thursday.
Yeah, you and Myrna will be back Thursday. I think it's like a more UK afternoon time.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we'll put a tweet out a few days in advance to make sure you guys know what time we're going live. But I will be missing that one, sadly. But yeah, I will be watching back, and maybe I'll try to jump in live on the YouTube chat and just watch along while I'm out. But have fun, guys. Good luck next game weekend. We'll see you all soon. Take care. Bye.
Bye.